clearly awakened the trashiest F-rank ability, Water Bubble. It is only good for moistening the school beauty's lips every day. All your friends mocked you for being a useless loser. So when it came to combat, they naturally pushed you out as easy bait. But in the very next second, the mere bait started slaughtering everything in sight. All because you awakened the all things sublimation system, transforming that useless water bubble into the ultimate SSS rank ability, Wrath of the Sea. A gust of wind carrying the stench of rotting rust swept straight into the abandoned steel mill. A hand shoved me hard from behind. I stumbled forward 2 steps. I kicked up loose gravel, regained my balance, and dusted off my faded school uniform sleeves. I looked up at the pitch-black mill entrance as rapid guttural growls echoed from the darkness. At least a dozen mutant beasts were lurking out there in the dark. With a trash ability, just be a good little meat shield, Jin-Kai mocked from behind. Get into position. Watch closely. This is the fate of the weak. The gym master smirked disdainfully. Dozens of students participating in the exam were standing way back behind the safety line. Their eyes held pity, but mostly relief that they were not the unlucky bait. So pathetic. An F-rank water bubble is a trash ability only good for spitting. He ranked dead last during the ceremony, so he got tossed straight into the bait class. The bait class was cannon fodder anyway, so he could only blame his rotten luck. Surrounding whispers fell into my ears, but I did not care in the slightest. I pulled a rusty, worn, smooth coin from my pocket and casually tossed it up. I completely ignored the gloomy mill entrance, focusing on the floating translucent light blue panel. The All Things Sublimation System panel showed its status as unactivated. Ever since I was judged as an F rank at the ceremony, this panel hung in my vision. Every time someone mocked or trampled on me, the progress bar jumped a little. For a whole month enduring cold stares and humiliation, I filled it to 99%, just a tiny bit more to go. A faint smile tugged at the corners of my lips. Young Master Jin is right, we have to rely on his supreme might against the Gale Wolves. Jin-Kai narrowed his eyes, unable to see through my calm expression. A sacrificial pawn about to enter a wolf's den should not act like this. He was so calm it sent a chill down Jin-Kai's spine. That uneasy feeling lasted barely half a second before being swallowed by overwhelming arrogance. A pathetic F-rank trash who can only squeeze out a few drops of water cannot change his fate. Cut the chatter and get your villain in there, Jin-Kai yelled arrogantly. Ding, extreme contempt detected from Jin-Kai, fear points +10. The number on the translucent panel jumped slightly, but the 99% progress remained motionless. I frowned slightly. It added 10 points, but the progress bar did not budge at all. I skimmed the tiny gray text at the bottom. Total fear points required for activation, 10,000. I was short by a whole 90 points. The 99% progress was just rounded up. Adding the 10 points I just received, the total was now at 9,910 points. I needed 90 more points to max it out based on my experience over the past month. Ordinary Contempt only gave 1 to 5 points, while Extreme Contempt from Jin-Kai gave 10. If I relied solely on standing around getting insulted, I would have to endure it a dozen more times. But what if I could do something that would shock people to their core? I tossed the coin in my hand as a meaningful smirk crept onto my lips. Move it. What are you doodling for? A lackey maliciously shoved me again. I used the momentum to step into the mill, my footsteps echoing coldly through the empty ruins. Pale rays filtered through the shattered dome, illuminating rusted steel beams across the ground. A strange foul stench lingered as pairs of green wolf eyes lit up in the darkness. Fighting one Tier 1 Gale Wolf was easy, but a pack could skin a solo Tier 2 awake alive. Jin-Kai led his lackeys to a high vantage point and slammed his staff to ignite a red flame. The bright fire illuminated the desolate rubble, luring the entire wolf pack over. Jin-Kai smirked smugly at me as the whole pack locked onto my position. "Thank you, young Master Jin," I said sincerely, leaning against the freezing iron wall. The first Gale Wolf lunged with wind-tearing speed, enveloped in a green aura of wind blades. It aimed straight for my throat terrifyingly fast, but I did not run or defend myself. I tilted my head slightly, bypassing the wolf to lock onto a distant hidden corner. A fluctuating aura was hiding there extremely well, not a mutant beast, but a strong human. I focused back in front. The wolf's claws were 10 centimeters from my throat. I flicked my right index finger, condensing a tiny crystal-clear drop of water. It seemed like an incredibly weak F-rank water bubble ability at first glance. The silent water drop shot out like lightning, striking the wolf's eye tear duct dead center. The Gale wolf jerked violently to the side from the sudden blinding pain. It smashed its head hard into the iron wall right behind me with a dull thud. It knocked itself out cold on the spot in less than a second. The aura in the dark corner trembled violently for a beat, caught by my sharp hearing. I did not turn my head as a barely noticeable smile crept onto my lips again. The numbers on the system panel silently ticked up. Ding! Mild surprise detected from an anonymous observer. Points +5. Current total, 9,915. Just 85 points away from the 10,000 mark, still too far off. I looked up at Jin Kai across from me, who was blasting fire enthusiastically. The real show was just about to begin as Jin Kai took down his third Gale wolf. He glanced at me standing obediently in the corner and grinned maliciously. A sinister glint flashed in his eyes as he whispered to his underling. He pulled out a tightly sealed small vial engraved with a skull symbol. It was beast lore powder, a contraband used to attract high-tier mutant beasts. Jin Kai licked his lips, his eyes locked onto me with pure malice. He wanted far more than a scapegoat. He coveted the rusty coin left by my parents. The Jin family's intelligence network had discovered a bizarre energy fluctuation inside that coin. What right did an F-rank trash have to hoard a treasure like this? It would be better if he just disappeared from this world to save everyone trouble. Jin Kai winked, signaling his underling to sneak up behind me quietly. I kept leaning against the iron wall, casually tossing the spinning coin in the air. Under the flickering firelight, its surface flashed with an eerie blue gleam instead of rust. Flames swallowed the Gale wolf as Jin Kai struck a pose and retracted his staff. His lackeys swarmed around him, kissing up to his ego enthusiastically. Young Master Jin is so badass. That A-rank flame is overpowered, unlike that coward trembling over there. The guy spoke while deliberately shooting a mocking glare my way. I was squatting next to the unconscious wolf, poking its ear with a curious expression. Jin Kai put on a fake look of concern and strode over to me. Jane Chen, are you hurt? That wolf lunged so fast I could not block it. I am fine. It ran too fast, smashed its head, and knocked itself out. This unlucky villain sure has 9 lives, a lackey muttered under his breath. Even if I dodged it, the real fatal blow was still to come. Jin Kai instructed his lackeys to take a 5-minute break before sweeping the core area. While he spoke, an underling circled behind me and twisted the porcelain stopper open. Colorless, odorless powder sprinkled down, clinging to the inside of my uniform collar. Despite being odorless, I caught a faint, sickly sweet metallic scent in the air. I watched the underling retract his hand, then curled my lip at Jin Kai's fake concern. The system panel remained silent, as ordinary insults would not yield enough points. But what if the upcoming events were dramatic enough? I didn't make a sound, didn't expose them. I just obediently followed the formation toward the core area. My acting skills were absolutely peaking. In the darkness, Lang Qing Shui was half crouching on a steel beam. 30 meters away, her black tactical windbreaker fluttered slightly in the wind. She was an examiner secretly dispatched by the military. The moment I flicked that water drop to blind the wolf, she had seen it clear as day, missing not a single detail. Interesting, Lang Qing Shui evaluated inwardly, but that was all it was. She was much more concerned with Jin Kai's movements. It already caught the scent of that beastlore powder military contraband blatantly appearing in an internal student exam. This crime alone was enough for the Jin family to face severe consequences. She was in no rush to intervene. She wanted to see just how ruthless Jin Kai was willing to be. She also wanted to see what choice I would make when pushed to the brink. Would I break down and cry for help or provide a different answer that would catch them off guard? Deep inside the mill, the core area suddenly opened up. A massive claw mark was gouged across the ground, looking absolutely terrifying. The claw mark was over half a meter wide. The steel at the edges was torn and curled outward, looking as flimsy as tin foil. The lackeys were so scared their faces turned pale. Young Master Jin, this claw mark must have been left by at least a tier 2 mutant beast. Or high, right? Him. What the abyss are you scared of? At worst, it's just a few tier 2 stragglers that slip through the net. Can easily wipe them out all by myself. As he spouted his arrogant words, his gaze deliberately swept over the back of my collar. Beast lore powder needed 15 minutes to take effect. Very soon the scent on my body would act like a flare, attracting every mutant beast within a 3-mile radius. By then, in the midst of the chaos, if an F-rank piece of trash happened to die, who would even care? Jinkai silently kept track of the time, the smile on his lips growing increasingly smug and relaxed, but how could he possibly know that my own calculations went far deeper than his? 7 minutes had passed and not a single Tier 2 beast had shown up. There were only two possibilities. 1. There was a higher tier overlord here, making Tier 2 beasts absolutely terrified to step even half a foot into its territory. I glanced at the half-meter wide claw mark on the ground, then looked up at the massive distorted holes in the dome. Those weren't formed by a natural collapse. Something from the outside had smashed right through, piercing the roof to burrow into this space and then just rooted itself here. My heart rate remained steady at 62 beats per minute. Suddenly the ground began to tremble ever so slightly. The frequency was so low it was almost imperceptible. It felt as if a giant heart was beating heavily underground. Blackies were still completely oblivious. Jinkai was still joking around with the guys next to him, but I could clearly feel every tremor. It wasn't coming from far away, but from right under our feet. I looked down, staring intently at the gloomy gap between two rails. The pitch-black darkness. Two ferocious dark red lights suddenly flashed, glowing like two red-hot iron spheres. Or eyes. I slowly raised my head, my voice incredibly calm. Young, of Jinkai's expression abruptly changed. With a loud boom, the steel floor exploded and shattered. A massive fissure tore right through the center of the ground. Rumble and broken pieces of railway track were blasted into the air by the compressed underground pressure. Giant grade beast roughly the size of a small truck burst frantically from the underground fissure, an armored rhino mutant beast. Right behind it came a second, then a third. In just 5 short seconds, 12 armored rhinos violently broke through the ground. They all simultaneously locked their gazes straight onto me. To be precise, they were locking onto the scent of the beast lure powder. Radiating from my collar, the lackeys were scared out of their wits, frantically stumbling and tumbling backward. The flickering, firelight cast shadows on Jinkai's face, which was now pale as a sheet, drained of all blood. According to his plan, at most, he'd only lure a few Tier 2 beasts and use the chaos to eliminate me, 12 of them. This was absolutely not a full retreat. Jinkai screamed until his voice cracked. He fiercely slammed his staff into the ground. A blazing wall of fire erupted, temporarily blocking the rhino stampede. Go now. He turned and ran for his life. After sprinting a few steps, he looked back and shouted, "It hold them off. I'm going to get reinforcements." What an act. It sounded pretty convincing, but his running speed didn't slow down, even a fraction. I stood there quietly, watching the backs of Jinkai and his group fade deep into the tunnel. My face didn't reveal the slightest hint of emotion. I didn't run. What I needed were shock points. I needed a truly explosive performance. The audience was right on the steel beam 30 meters away. That hidden aura was still there. Moreover, due to the appearance of the rhino herd, its fluctuation frequency was clearly beating fast. That person was tense, hesitating whether to intervene or not. That was enough. I lightly flexed my fingers, my eyes quickly scanning the surrounding terrain. In rusted rails, broken pillars, a half-collapsed dome. The surface of the rails was covered in years of, and those pillars had been shaken by the aftershocks when the rhinos burst from the ground, leaving them tottering and ready to fall. The hole in the dome was located right above, slightly to the left of the rhino herd. Boulders could fall at any moment. The F-rank water bubble ability had a condensation limit, a B, only about 200 milliliters of water. Facing 12 armored rhinos head-on, it wouldn't even be enough to scratch their itch, but I never had any intention of fighting them. Hand to hand, the wall of fire extinguished. The 12 armored rhinos roared in unison and charged. Their iron-like hooves trampled the ground to pieces, aggressively crushing everything in their path toward me. My eyes snapped wide open. I didn't step back, but instead, stomped sideways to the right, stepping precisely onto a bent steel beam and broke into a full sprint. This wasn't running away. It was running along the steel framework, heading straight for the railway area on the rhino's flank. My movement route was incredibly tricky. Every step slipped perfectly into the blind spots. Eat the edge of the monster's vision. 3 seconds. I reached the railway area, 3 seconds. I reached the railway area, both hands swung up simultaneously. Drops of water oozed from all 10 fingertips at once. The entire reserve of ability power erupted, draining completely in this very moment. But it wasn't to shoot them out, it was for lubrication. The water drops turned into a paper-thin film of water, perfectly coating 3 sections of the rails that the rhino herd was forced to cross. A film so thin it was practically invisible. But that was more than enough. The hooves of the leading armored rhino viciously stomped onto the water-coated rail. The rail surface was already rusted and slid, and now, combined with the lubrication of the water film, the friction plummeted straight to zero. The 3-ton armored rhino, charging at maximum speed, suddenly slipped, losing all traction. Massive body crashed heavily to the side. The terrifying momentum turned it into an out-of-control cannonball, hurtling straight into the side, slamming violently into that tottering pill. The pillar instantly snapped at its base, dragging down the entire steel. Tons of shattered steel and iron came crashing down, straight from above, crushing the second and third rhinos that were blind, charging right behind. A chain reaction. The fourth one stepped on the second water film. The fifth and sixth running behind couldn't break in time, them crashing into each other in a chaotic pileup. The remaining rhinos were blocked by the massive bodies of their own kind, halting their advance. The sound of iron armor clashing together clanged loudly throughout the entire mill. The charging formation of the 12 Tier 2 armored rhinos was broken. Up on the steel beam hidden in the darkness, Lang Chengshui had stood up at some point. Her fingers gripped, her blade hilt so tightly her knuckles turned white, her lip parted slightly, her pupils shrinking to the extreme. It actually used an F-rank water bubble ability to pull off something this incredible. This wasn't normal combat anymore. It was battlefield control at the level of a complete sweep. Emotions surging in that moment wasn't just a little surprise, it was an overwhelming, uncontrollable shock. The numbers on the system panel jumped wildly. Ding. Extreme shock detected from an anonymous observed. Shock points 80. Current accumulation 9,995 points. It's 5 points away from a perfect 10,000. I heard footsteps. Jin Kai was running back for his life, not because his conscience suddenly kicked in, but because the path over there had been blocked by a pack of gale wolves that caught the scent of the beast lure powder. Pinned down from both sides, he had nowhere left to retreat, forcing him to run blindly back. Jin Kai crashed into the core area. The sight that greeted him short-circuited his brain. 12 armored rhinos were sprawled everywhere, piled on top of each other like a heap of scrap metal. Meanwhile, I was standing perfectly safe right in the middle, casually tossing and catching a rusty coin. I glanced over and differently, meeting Jin Kai's horrified gaze. Head on, young Master Jin. Where are your reinforcements? I asked with a smile. Jin Kai's lips trembled violently. Its brain seemed to refuse to process the absurd scene right in front of him. How did you? Before he could finish a sentence, the ground beneath our feet, but this time it wasn't coming from far away. The epicenter was right underneath us, right beneath the pile of 12 armored rhinos. From deep underground, a suffocating dark red murderous aura billowed up through the cracks. The remaining pieces of the ceiling on the dome were smashed to pieces by a giant fiery red hand. From the inside, rubble rained down like a downpour. Amidst the thick dust, a massive dark silhouette dropped from the hole in the ceiling, landing with a heavy thud that shook the earth, making everyone stumble and nearly fall. 5 meters tall, its entire body covered in rough dark red skin. Its bloodshot eyes had no pupils, containing only pure cruelty. Peak Tier 3, the ruler class mutant beast bloodthirsty. The staff in Jin Kai's hand slipped and fell to the ground. He didn't even have the strength to bend down and pick it up. The demonic ape growled and lowered its head. Its glowing red eyes swept across the entire area. Then it suddenly reached out and snatched the unlucky wacky stint. First of golden light exploded. Only then did Jin Kai find his voice, letting out a distorted, terrified shriek. Meanwhile, I stood 15 meters away, looking up at this 5-meter-tall monster. The numbers on the system panel were still silently 5,005 points left. My heart rate remained steady at 62 beats a minute. The coin continuously spun on my fingertip. A blue gleam flashed, and the demonic ape's eyes locked onto me. The monster didn't give anyone time to react. It grabbed the second lackey upside down and slammed him hard onto the rails. 2 steel rails snapped, the impact to form the guy's body. Beyond recognition, the remaining 2 lackeys finally suffered a mental breakdown, ran for their lives. The demonic ape tilted its head slightly, choosing the target on the left. With just 1 step, it crossed a 15-meter distance. Its giant hand smashed straight into the ground, caving it in to form a 2-meter deep crate. Then it slowly turned around, aiming its glowing red eyes at Jinka. His teeth were chatter, then his hands. He knew running was useless. M in A rank, M the heir of the Jin family. Jin Kai roared, raising his staff high above his head. All the spiritual energy in his body frantic, poured into the staff. A massive pillar of fire, 2 meters in diameter, blasted straight into the demonic ape's chest. As the smoke cleared, the demonic ape still stood tall in place. The patch of dark red skin on its chest hadn't even changed color. It looked down at its chest, then looked back up at Jin Kai, its expression seemingly saying, "Is that it?" Jin Kai's pupils shrank violently. The demonic ape lifted its foot and stomped down hard. Staff shattered, along with Jin Kai's right hand, which was tightly gripping the staff. Everything was crushed into the ground. Jin Kai let out a blood-curdling scream and collapsed. His entire body convulsed. A warm liquid began to spread from his pants. A strong stench of urine filled the air. The demonic ape raised its other hand, aiming straight for Jin Kai's head, 30 meters away at terrifying speed. Lang Qing Shui-du from her hiding spot, her black cloak billowing in the air, holding 2 high-frequency vibration blades. He slashed down with all her might at the spine, on the demonic ape's back. S rank ability, extreme cold severing slash. The moment the blades touched the skin on the demonic ape's back, a thin layer of ice condensed, then abruptly stopped. Lang Qing Shui felt a terrifying rebound force. Agonizing, tearing pain shot through her hands. Golden energy slid along the blade's trajectory, a full power slash from 2S rank vibration blades, taking the back of a peak tier 3 the ruler, yet it only left a faint white mark, so light it was almost invisible. The demonic ape snapped its head around and swung its arm in a sweeping stripe. Lang Qing Shui hastily crossed her blades to block. With a dull thud, her body was sent flying backward. Her back slammed hard into the ruins of a smelting furnace. 30 meters away, she slid down the dented wall, dropping to her knees. She stabbed her 2 blades. Despairs poured into everyone's chests, like molten steel. Demonic ape turned back to look at its initial locked-on target. I was still standing there 15 meters away, leaning against the iron wall. The coin in my hand kept spinning on my fingertip. Heart rate, 62. The numbers on the system panel were still glowing silently, 10,000, just 5 points short. I looked up, my gaze bypassing the demonic ape to look at lynching sweat, kneeling in the distance in her icy blue eyes. There was an emotion I was incredibly familiar with. It wasn't fear but indignation. It was pure despair, feeling that even if you gave it your all, you couldn't change a single thing. Run. The demonic ape was already striding toward me. I put away the coin and patted the dust off my school uniform. No rush. My voice wasn't loud, but it was strangely clear, piercing through all the noise and chaotic roaring. Then I took a step. Stepping out from the cover of the iron, Shinshua's pupils suddenly dilated to their limits, taking the initiative to charge straight at a peak tier 3 lore. In that moment, all her training, all her common sense, and her countless battlefield experiences couldn't explain the scene unfolding right before her eyes. Her heart seemed to skip a beat, then started pounding violently. The final number on the system panel ticked up. Dang. Lang Cheng Shui detected sinking into absolute despair. Fear. Current accumulation 10,045 points. Activation conditions met. All things sublimation system officially activates. A light blue notification panel popped up right in front of my eyes. A brilliant golden light filled the sky. The moment that golden light erupted from the screen, my vision was completely swallowed. All things sublimation system officially activated. Host's current ability, F-rank water bubble. Available sublimations. 1. Do you wish to consume 1,000 fear points? Sublimate the F-rank water bubble ability. I didn't hesitate at all. Moment the thought of sublimation crossed my mind. The great text F-ranked water bubble on the system panel. Shattered. Sublimation. Successful. Congratulations, host. Have obtained the unique SSS rank ultimate ability, Wrath of the Sea God. Ability description. Command the source of all water. Wield the sea, the leader spring. Water is the supreme element of the realm above and earth. It can attack, it can defend, it can transform into all things. Unlimited attack range. Unlimited power. Remaining fear points 9,045 points. Golden light faded and I saw the real world again. Less than half a second had passed. The demonic ape was taking its second step toward me. Its giant foot crushed the rails. Its massive hand was already smashing straight down. That shadow completely engulfed my body, but I didn't run. I looked up. The demonic ape clearly saw the change in my eyes. My originally pitched black pupils were now being swallowed by a deep blue from the very center. It was the color of the ocean. I spoke my voice. That's not how you use water. I snapped my fingers. The index and middle fingers of my right hand rubbed together, letting out a crisp snap. So, an absolute physical silence within a 100-meter radius. All sound vanished at once. Replacing the sound was water vapor, every remaining drop of water in the ruins of the steel mill. The water in the rusted holes, the water beneath the cracks in the ground, all the water molecules floating in the air. At this very moment they all received a command. They moved, then began to converge. From all directions, ground right beneath my feet began to ripple outward ring by ring. In glowing blue halos, they look like water ripples. Yep, but also, like some ancient magic array, the demonic ape's giant hand was only about 2 meters from the top of my head. It smashed down with all its might. Moment the palm wind descended. A blue pillar of light, 10 meters in diameter, shot straight up into the sky from the glowing halos beneath my feet, without any warning whatsoever. Inside that pillar of light with seawater swirling, at terrifying speeds. Demonic ape's giant hand slammed hard into the water pillar and stopped, but it didn't slow down before stopping. It went from maximum speed to an abrupt dead stop at zero. The rushing water itself cut a faint long gash across the demonic ape's palm. Golden liquid oozed out. In the demonic ape's bloodshot eyes, confusion flickered for the very first time. This human child, barely bigger than an ant, had actually used water to slice a wound into its palm. Demonic ape swung its arm intending to smash the water pillar, but mere fractions of a second after being dispersed, the water pillar condensed right back to how it was. Liquid doesn't have a fixed shape. Smashing it is meaningless. That will just instantly gather back together. Are you done hitting? A voice echoed from the center of the water pillar. Now it's my turn. I raised my right hand. My 5 fingers slightly spread. This sky outside the hole in the dome began to change color. The gray clouds in just 3 seconds were swallowed by a layer of deep blue storm clouds. The clouds accelerated their swirling, forming a massive vortex. What poured down from the hole in the dome was no longer pale gray light but water, then gathered together in mid-air, transforming into a giant hand, a hand made of water, slammed down from above, grabbing hold with absolute unbreakable precision. The neck of the bloodthirsty dark being ape, the 5-meter-tall monster, was pinned in place by the giant water hand. It flailed its arms frantically, tearing at the watery grip. Every swipe ripped open a hole, but the gap was instantly filled by flowing water. Just 0.1 seconds. Water has no weaknesses because water has no form. It can never be shattered. My blue eyes entered intently at the trapped dark being ape. While the numbers on the system panel were jumping like crazy. Ding! Detected extreme shock from Leng Cheng Shui. A shock points 200. Ding! Detected ultimate fear and cognitive collapse from Jinka. Shock points 150. Detected mental breakdown of an unnamed lackey. Shock points 80. Ding! Detected through remote observation equipment and collective shock from multiple observers. Shock points 500. Current shock point. Dark being ape struggles were weakening, not because it gave up, but because the crushing force of the water hand kept increasing. Even so, it wasn't dead yet. The vitality of a peak tier 3, the ruler was truly more tenacious than anything I'd ever dealt with before. Incredibly stubborn. It'll just have to take my time. The dark being ape still refused to give up. It opened its massive maw and blasted out a crimson shockwave of killing intent. The blast slammed directly into the giant water hand. The water exploded, creating a 3-meter-wide hole. That hole lasted for less than 0.2 seconds. Surrounding water instantly rushed into sealant. I tilted my head slightly, noticing a detail. Right when the dark being ape unleashed that shockwave, the dark red skin on its neck faded from deep red to pale red, it's burning its origin essence to fight back. That's all? Enough. I dropped my relaxed expression. Dragging this out is pointless. Every second delay, it makes Leng Qingshu's injuries worse. Disintegrate. Just one word. The giant water hand immediately, and it didn't squeeze tighter. It didn't crush. It's separate. It did, within a single second. The massive hand split into tens of thousands of tiny water streams. Each stream was only the size of a finger, but they spun so fast that the naked eye and couldn't even track them. High-pressure water blades. Over 10,000 high-pressure water jets surged forward simultaneous, unleashing total destruction on the dark being ape's dark red skin, leaving no blind spots. The armor that even Leng Qingshu's S-rank, extreme cold cleave could only leave a white mark on that a rank defense. The second wave cut 7 millimeters deep. The third wave sliced straight into the muscle layer. The dark being ape let out a truly agonizing shriek. It struggled desperately, but those water threads were in solid object. Throwing punches couldn't destroy them. A fist would pass through a water thread, and the thread would simply part the moment the fist went through, then instantly close back up to continue slicing and constricting. Right arm of the Tier 3 dark being ape fell right off at the shoulder joint. It wasn't chopped off, but precise as a surgical operation. The dark being ape's tragic screams grew hoarse. Now there was only absolute terror in the face of imminent death. 5 seconds later, the water threads completed their final constriction. I relaxed my right hand the moment my 5 fingers clenched into a fist. Of a water thread tightened at once, then exploded into a dazzling shower of golden light that filled the sky. The peak, the ruler tier bloodthirsty dark being ape, was just like that, disintegrated into countless specks of light. The brilliant golden rain of light, when it was about 10 centimeters from my body, automatically changed direction, curving around me and fluttering down to the ground behind me. My school uniform remained blindingly clean, while the core area suddenly fell into silence. In absolute silence, a dark red crystal, the size of a fist, fell from the sky and landed right on the ground in front of me. I crouched down, picked up the monster core and shoved it into my pocket, letting it sit next to that rusty coin. Then I stood up and turned to look at Jin Kai. He had collapsed onto the ground. A fragment of his staff was still. His eyes were wide open, pupil shrunk to the size of pinpricks. I walked closer. Not a speck of dust on my clothes, not a single drop of sweat on my face. I crouched down and looked straight into Jin Kai's eyes. Young Master Jin. Jin Kai's teeth were chattering, getting more violent by the second. Luring powder, huh? It'll give you credit for that. Next time, remember to prepare an antidote for yourself. If you can't run away an illusion, this has to be an illusion. An F rank. How could your F rank bubble ability? He swung his uninjured left arm up and slapped himself across the face with all his might. The crisp slap echoed across the empty clear. It wasn't a dream. I looked at him coldly for about 2 seconds, then stood up. Stop hitting yourself. Your face will swell. After saying that, I didn't even bother looking at Jin Kai anymore. I turned and walked toward Leng Qingshui. The shock points on the system panel were still jumping continuously. Detected that the worldview of Jin Kai 100. Leng Qingshui was still maintaining a one-knee kneeling posture. Her 2 vibration blades were stabbed into the ground, serving as her only support. Breathing was short and shallow, but her eyes were burning bright. Those AC blue eyes stared intently at the person walking toward her. Her gaze held too many intertwined emotions, astonishment, and doubt and scrutiny. Your ability isn't F rank, she spoke, her voice completely hoarse. I stopped about 3 paces away from her. 10 minutes ago it was Leng Qingshui pondered for a moment. She had 100 things she wanted to ask, but her training instincts reminded her that now wasn't the time for an interrogation. How much longer can you maintain that power? She asked, getting straight to the point. The ability reserves in my body. I used up about 30% in that fight just now. Still enough to use. Leng Qingshui nodded and immediately made a judgment. She pulled out a micro radio from the inner pocket of her trench coat and pressed the red button connecting straight to the emergency channel. This is Leng Qingshui, ID code S0117. Her voice turned steel. The practical exam area in the abandoned steel mill in the eastern suburbs of Zhengzhou, an S rank or higher emergency has occurred. The bloodthirsty dark being ape, a peak tier 3, the ruler has been eliminated. Injured. There are injured students at the scene. The other end of the line went silent for 3 seconds, then became the suppressed voice of a middle-aged man. A peak tier 3, the ruler was eliminated. Leng Cheng Shui, do you confirm? Confirm that you took it down. Ling Cheng Shui glanced at me. At that moment, I was crouching on the ground, digging the rusty coin out of my pocket and flipping it playfully. The central area, after being swept by the golden light, was now completely devastated and desolate. Yet there I was squatting right in the middle of that mess. Spotless, without a single speck of dust on me, looking utterly bored. It wasn't me, Lang Cheng Shui replied. Then who was it? One who took down the target is a student participating in the practical exam. Lang Cheng Shui cut him off, her voice flat. Awake in debility level. Other end was dead silent for 5 seconds. Then came the crisp shattering sound of a crash. A teacup had shattered. The monitoring center on the 3rd basement level of the Jiangzhou Military District's eastern suburb branch. 24 ultra-high-definition screens were mounted on the wall. Screen number 7 was broadcasting directly from the abandoned steel mill. Right now, 11 people were huddled in front of that screen, including the highest-ranking commander of the sub-district, the S-rank general, Yue Jianshan. The old man, 62 years old this year, had a thin, shriveled figure and wore a gray civilian outfit. Half a minute ago, his left hand was still holding a teacup. Now porcelain shards were scattered all over the floor. Remember, everyone's eyes were glued to screen. Number 7. The footage on the screen was being replayed. From the moment the dark being ape appeared, to when the giant water hand materialized. In mid-air, the water jet attacks and the blinding golden light shooting across sky, every frame was slowed down by 3 times. The energy measurement data column on the right side of the screen had jumped into a series of bright red exclamation marks. The voice of the technical team leader Fang Yun was trembling. The peak index has exploded the charts. The energy detectors we installed are the 7th generation. Maximum measurement threshold is equivalent to SS rank. Today it didn't just max out, it completely shattered the limit. The peak index exceeded the SS rank limit by at least 40%. The entire monitoring center was dead silent. Yu Jin Shen K, his eyes glued to the screen, staring intently at the teenager in the school uniform. Student. The replay paused right at the moment the battle ended. I was speculating right in the epicenter. After the golden light had swept through every corner, tossing a coin in my hand. Pull up his file immediately. You. Sean ordered. 30 seconds later, my student file was projected straight onto the screen. Name Jiang Chen, age 17, awakening level F rank, ability bubble. Notes, none. A background so clean it was unbelievable. Yu Zhenshan looked away from the file and back. On the screen, a giant water hand descended from the sky. To be honest, that scene possessed a beauty, akin to the grand murals of antiquity. This power has surpassed even SSS rank. Fang Yun confirmed his data once again. General UAE, as far as I know. In the entire Hawaii Federation right now, the SSS rank awaken, recorded in the files. Number only 3. As for surpassing SSS rank in theoretical documents, here's a term called mythic rank, but for the past 25 years that concept has only existed on paper. Well, now it exists. Bent down and picked up a shard of the teacup from the floor. Fang Yun raised the security clearance of this footage to the highest level. Everyone present here from this moment on, everything you have seen today is classified as level 1 top secret. Anyone who leaks this to unauthorized personnel will be severely punished under military law. Understood. The 10 people shouted in unison. Yu Genshan straightened his back. Communications team, connect to Lang Qingshui's channel immediately. Qingshui, there is that student right now. Hez right next to me. A brief silence followed. Hez flipping those ironclad rhinos over. You. Bugin Shan was slightly taken aback. That herd of ironclad rhinos. Earlier he used a water membrane to knock them over, piling them up into a heap. Some of the ones crushed at the bottom can't flip themselves back over, so it has helping them flip over. In Lang Qingshu's tone, there was a very bizarre emotion mixed in. It wasn't mockery, but more like a sense of absurdity so profound that, and it was hard to digest. Yu Zhenshan didn't press further about the matter. Of flipping those rhinos. Qingshu, how are your injuries? 3. Ribs, severely damaged. Fuff tribe Dipnuntoi van Kachuter. The support and medical teams have already departed. They'll be there in 6 minutes. Listen to me carefully before the support team arrive. Absolutely do not say or do anything that could be perceived as a threat to that student. No interrogations and do not restrict his freedom of movement. Understood? One more thing. The fact that I saw the whole process. Good. Preserve the evidence carefully. Call ended. Eugene Sean stood in the middle of the monitoring center, staring intently at the figure paused on screen number 7. Staff officer beside him cautiously asked, General Yue, General Yu, how should we handle this student? Word handle made you Asian Sean frown. Handle what he retorted, a 17-year-old kid, placed in a decoy group, pushed out to be a meat shield, having beast-luring powder smeared on his clothes by a classmate. They intended to use this opportunity to silence him. In such a dire situation, the kid unleashed his latent ability power to defend himself, and you're asking me for a safety risk assessment report. Are you kidding me? Shut your mouth. Yu Zhenshan strode over to the communications desk and personally picked up the receiver. He paused for a beat. Connect me to the Awakened Management Bureau of Zhangzhou City. After that, connect to the Federal Military Branch. Finally, get me the Dean of the 3rd Awakened Academy. Tone was incredibly cold, but the temperature in the monitoring center dropped by another 2 degrees. The core area of the abandoned steel mill, he was actually helping the ironclad rhinos flip over. The 12 Tier 2 ironclad rhinos in front of him were so decal that it made Lang Cheng Shui feel like she was hallucinate. He used a stream of water to support the waist of the rhino on top, then gently flipped it over so its 4 legs touched the ground. After landing, the rhino shook itself clean, then lowered its head and nudged his hand. All right, stop nudging. You've got more drool than my bubbles. The rhino rubbed against him one more time. He pushed the rhino's head away. Wind in the central area stopped blowing for a few seconds, then resumed its howling, carrying. The residual energy ripples out in all directions. It pinched the ruler tier monster core between my fingers, tore all that twice in my palm, then shoved it back into my pocket. My gaze swept across the entire ruins. This survivor named Zhao Jian was cowering behind the smelting furnace, trembling violently, his mind already 70 or 80% broken but still alive. I strolled over leisurely. My pace wasn't fast. The sound of crushed gravel crunching under my boots echoed loudly in the vast empty factory, carrying far into the distance. 2 meters, 1.5 meters. I crouched down at this distance. I didn't even furrow my brow, while Jin Kai's teeth had already started chattering uncontrollably. I ask you, answer properly, and well, consider this matter settled. The word settled slammed into his crumbling brain, seized by his survival instincts a beat faster. Okay. I ask whatever you want. Whose idea was the beast-luring powder? My second uncle. Jin Kai didn't hesitate for even a second. Jin-Woo, wanting from the second branch of the Jin family. He told me to use this exam to get rid of you. The reason is that coin of yours. Jin Kai's eyes darted toward my pocket, then quickly retracted in panic, as if had been burned. Secret realm. My right hand gently rubbed the rusty surface of the coin in my pocket, and a ranked secret realm has a starting price of 15 billion. No wonder he was so antsy. Who else knows about this? My second uncle. He said he couldn't reveal it to the family head and definitely couldn't let the old master know, otherwise it would be swallowed up entirely. Everything I needed to ask had been asked. Jin Kai stared intently at my face, discreetly searching for my answer, a sign that I was satisfied, a signal that he could live. He found it, or rather, he thought he had found it. I curled the corners of my lips slightly, a faint smile that looked incredibly gentle. Brother Chen, I've told you everything. Please let me go. It'll help you deal with second uncle the Jin family's resources. I can get them for you too. I slowly raised my right hand. That hand didn't conjure any water. My 5 fingers spread open, then gently rested on the top of his head. The pressure was extremely light. Everything you just said. Jin Kai was stunned by this thanks, but his next words would never be spoken. Tip of my right index finger. Press against the skin behind Jin Kai's ear, right at one of the most fragile spots. On the head, I condensed a water jet with a diameter of 2.08 millimeters thinner than the finest human hair. The water jet pierced straight into his brain core, delivering a fatal blow to his vital point. Jin Kai's pupils froze in that bewildered stare. In the end, his mouth remained half open. His body didn't collapse. The iron pillar and the track supported his lifeless corpse, his posture no different from when he was alive. The entire process took less than half a second. I pulled my hand back and flicked my thumb. The drop of water on my fingertip fell into a crevice in the rubble. Next was cleaning up the scene. I bent down and picked up a dark red energy fragment the size of a knuckle. I jammed it into the right side of Jinkai's head, right into the gash above his hull. That wound was caused by configured at 20 degrees, high on the outside, low on the inside, perfectly mimicking a high-speed projectile, blasted outward by a shockwave. The ballistic characteristics of the impact matched flawlessly. Cause of death, clear, trajectory, logical, physical evidence, complete and valid. I walked behind the smelting furnace. Xiao Jian was curled up like a ball of meat, his hands clutching his head tightly. Every muscle in his body was twitching. Hey, Xiao Jian jolted violently through the gap. Between his arms he peeked out with a bloodshot eye. I am not going to touch you. I crouch down later when the rescue team arrives, asks questions. Just tell the truth. Say that during the exam we ran into a tier 3 beast, boss Lang Qing Shui, and you guys had teamed up to hold it off for a while I hid in a corner and did nothing. Shu Jian carefully chewed over every word I said in his head. As for Jinkai, I jerked my chin toward the tracks during the fight. He was struck in the... You saw it with your own eyes. Xiao stared at me for 3 seconds, then nodded frantic. So fast his cervical vertebrae nearly snapped. Don't overdo it. Stand up. With the way you look right now, stuttering when you speak is normal. If you overact, you'll blow your cover. Ding. Detected extreme fear and submission from Xiao Jian. Shock points 35. Well, better than nothing. I turned around and looked back at Lang Cheng Shui. She was leaning against the rubble of the smelting furnace. Walked over there, dug through the pile of shattered equipment nearby, and pulled out a relatively clean steel plate to make a makeshift table. Then, I condensed a handful of water from thin air, pure water, completely free of impurities. I held the water up to Lang Qingshu's face. Drink some. Lang Qingshui looked at the sphere of water hovering right above my palm. She hesitated for a moment, then lowered her head and took a sip. The moment the water slid down her throat, refreshing coolness spread from her esophagus all the way to her lungs. The sharp pain from her broken rib. Lan Qingshui slightly raised her eyes. Does this water have healing properties? I'm not sure either. Tell me the truth. It's a newly awakened ability. I haven't even finished reading the user manual yet. Lang Qingshui stared at my face for 3 seconds. His face was very young. The features of a 17-year-old hadn't completely lost their boyish innocence. As clean as my uniform, untainted by the dust of the world. It gave off an unreal feeling. Your name is Zhang Chen. Lang Qingshui spoke up. Right. Earlier when you shot a bubble into the wolf's eye, you did it on purpose, so I would see. Didn't you? I didn't deny it. Why? Because I needed someone to be shocked. The answer was incredibly brief, but the amount of information it carried was so massive that it rendered Lang Yingshu speechless. For a few seconds from the distance came the thumping sound of helicopter rotors. Thump, thump. 6 military transport helicopters flew in low from the northeast. The blinding white light of their searchlight, cabin doors slit open. Special forces, soldiers in black tactical gear, fast roped down and landed squarely on the ground. The medical team was the first in position. 2. The cosmetics rushed to Lan Qingshu's side, their movements opening the first aid kits incredibly practiced. Another group sprinted toward Jinkai. He was huddled next to the track, his eyes completely unfocused. A medic checked his injured hand, then shined to pen light straight into his pupils, turning his head to signal the team leader. Psychological trump. Needs immediate priority. Medevac, the only surviving lackey, was dragged out from behind the smelting furnace because he had held that curled-up boiled shrimp posture. For too long his limbs had completely stiffened. The bodies of the other 3 lackeys. He had already been zipped up in black body bags. The on-site commander was a colonel. He strode toward me. At this moment I was sitting on a makeshift steel platform, the coin spinning endlessly on my fingertip. The 12 ironclad rhinos had at some point automatically formed a semicircle around me, letting me sit imperiously in the center. It wasn't an encirclement. It looked more like an honor guard. The colonel stopped about 3 meters away from me. The 12 rhinos simultaneously turned their heads to look at him. 24 small bloodshot eyes staring him down. The colonel swallowed hard. Student Young Chen, I'm Chen Yuan from the eastern suburbs sub-district. General, you set me to pick you up. Pick me up. Where to? Back to the sub-district. Chen Yuan hastily added, it's not an interrogation. General Yu said he wants to invite you over for a cup of tea. I looked at him for about 2 seconds. So can I bring these rhinos along? Chen Yuan turned his head to look at the 12 ironclad rhinos, each weighing up to 3 tons. Let me ask for instruction. From my superiors first. The numbers on the system panel quietly ticked up a notch, shoved the coin into my pocket, and stood up from the steel platform. Little while later, I was sitting in the transport helicopter, leaning against the cabin wall, and began my act. I concealed to all my ability fluctuations. I hunched my shoulders slightly and tapped my right index finger lightly and rhythmically on the back of my left hand. Left hand, the very picture of an F-rank student who, out of sheer terror, accidentally causes ability to erupt out of control. Colonel Shen Yuan sitting opposite me noticed my demeanor and didn't initiate any conversation. 14 minutes later, the helicopter landed. As I stepped off the aircraft, I held onto the edge of the door, my footsteps slightly unsteady. Someone happened to be waiting for me at the landing pad. A female lieutenant colonel introduced herself as Shang and led me to meet General Yu. The place we went to wasn't an interrogation room, a very ordinary tea room. Yuji and Sean sat at the other end of the table. He looked thinner and older than my image of a major general, seemed rather unremarkable, wearing a gray civilian outfit, with no military insignia. He pointed to the chair opposite him. Sit. I walked over and sat down. He poured me a cup of tea and pushed it over. I reached out, picked it up, and took a sip. The tea was very good. Brought this tea from my hometown, Yu Zhenshan said, raising his own cup. His gaze pierced through the hazy steam of the tea. The tea staring at me in silence for about 10 seconds. You were terrified, weren't you? He broke the silence with an incredibly gentle question. My hand trembled slightly as I set the teacup down. A tier 3 the ruler, let alone a student, even the S-rank personnel present, couldn't hold it off. The fact that you survived is already a miracle. Yes, I heard from Ling Qing Shui that on the boundary of life and death you unleashed a very powerful ability. I'm not really sure either. I deliberately lowered my voice, making it deep. I intentionally spoke very slowly. At the moment the dark being ape charged straight at me, my mind went completely blank. After that, I just felt like something inside my body had cracked open. I don't remember much of what happened next, and you still use that power now. There's nothing left. It's gone. My voice was a perfect blend of confusion and discipline. Flawless. It feels like it's completely drained. Yu Jinchuan stared intently at my hand. 3 seconds later, he took another sip of tea. Don't worry. After an ability erupts, it's normal for it to enter, but neither of us called the other out. When I was on my 3rd cup of tea, there were 2 knocks on the door. Lieutenant Colonel Shang pushed the door open and walked in. Her expression was a bit strange. She walked over to Yuj and Sean leaned in and whispered a few words. Hand holding his teacup suddenly paused, confirmed. Yes. Before our reinforcement forces arrive. The core area, an energy fragment from the beast was discovered. It had pierced deeply into a vital spot. The victim had completely lost all vital signs. Before the reinforcements arrive, Yujin Shan thoughtfully repeated it once. In other words, during the battle, Yu Zhenshan was the one who had watched the entire video recording of the fight. He recalled the moment the dark being ape was torn apart. Countless energy fragments blasted across the sky, creating a brilliant golden rain of light. That rain poured down, covering every inch of ground in the central area. An energy fragment, in the midst of the chaos, had struck Jinkai right in a vital spot on his head. Statistically speaking, it was entirely possible. Handle the aftermath according to standard procedure. Understood. Lieutenant Colonel Shang turned and walked out. After the door closed, it was just the 2 of us in the tea room again. And then Yuj and Sean glanced at me. I was clutching my teacup tightly, my hands trembling slightly, my eyes staring blankly at the tea and the cup. Looking exactly like someone who had just suffered a shock and hadn't recovered yet. Yu Zhenshan didn't ask anything. He just poured me some more tea. 20 minutes later, I was taken to the medical bay. Just Just as I stepped out of the tea room at the corner of the corridor, I bumped into someone. It was Ling Cheng Shui. She had changed into a clean military hospital gown. Her chest and back were wrapped in thick bandages, her face pale, but those icy blue eyes were razor-sharp, glaringly bright. "Hey, a boss?" I stopped in my tracks. "Has your power recovered?" "Not at all. Where would I get any power, boss, in just a measly F-rank water jet? What happened earlier was probably because I was so scared that it triggered a desperate reflex, right? Now I couldn't squeeze a single drop of water." Scrutinizing every muscle on my face, this face was very young, the expression innocent and bewildered, even carrying a hint of timid fear. It looked incredibly genuine. If she hadn't seen with her own eyes the sight of me crushing a tier 3 the ruler with one hand, she probably would have bought it completely. A desperate reflex. Lang Cheng Shui muttered those words under her breath. An F-ranked water jet, because of fear, condensed an entire cumulonimbus cloud to strike down. Because of fear, used tens of thousands of high-pressure water jets, grind a peak tier 3 the ruler into specks of light. Lang Cheng Shui stared at me. I looked back at her. We stared at each other in a standoff for 5 seconds before Lang Cheng Shui spoke first. "ALL. By your story for now." After saying that, she dug a card out of her hospital gown pocket and handed it to me. The card had gold edges with an 8-pointed star emblem printed on the front. This is my personal recommendation pass. With this, you can skip the Academy's selection round and participate directly in the turn of "Thanks, boss." Ling Cheng Shui turned and walked away. After taking 3 steps, she paused again but didn't look back. "Jin Kai is dead." My response was neither fast nor slow. Just now in the tea room, I heard General Yue mention it. So sudden, Lang Cheng Shui stood still for about 2 seconds, then continued walking. I leaned against the wall and pulled the card back out of my pocket, holding it up to examine it under the fluorescent light. The inter-school tournament. A stage where I could interact with more people, more resources, and harvest more shock points. System panel quietly lit up in the upper right corner of my vision. Current shock points balance 13,740 points. This number was still slowly ticking up at the Lin family manor. In the western suburbs of Zhengzhou, the long red sandalwood table sitting in the middle of the courtyard had a history of 300 years. Right now, only exactly half of it remained. Jinlin pulled his right hand back. Wood splinter is still swirling in the air. With just one palm strike to the table, the 3-inch thick red sandalwood had split cleanly in two, along the grain. His eyes were pinned to the piece of paper in front of him. It was the official notification sent by the military, black ink on white paper, clear as day. To sum it up, it was just one sentence. His son was dead. Cause of death: killed in action during combat. Struck by an energy fragment from a tier 3 lore. Beasts in a vital spot. Died on the spot. In the attached file, there were photos of the scene and an autopsy report, personally signed and confirmed by a first-class military medical examiner. Jinlin's gaze stopped at the name Zheng Chen for a 4 or 5 seconds. An F-rank bubble ability during this exam. Due to his ability being agitated and losing control, momentarily unleashed power beyond his level, assisting in repelling the beast. Second uncle. In the shadowed corner on the left side of the hall, a middle-aged man stepped forward half a pace. Jinwoo Wanting, the head of the Jin family's second brand, the leader of the Shadow Division. That plan was your idea. Jin Yanlin. Some details in the military's notification had made his older brother suspicious. Letter he told Jin Kai to read. Did the kid actually burn it or not? He couldn't know because Jin Kai was already dead. Jinwoo Wanting took a deep breath. Big brother, Jin Kai is my nephew. I'm more heartbroken than anyone. Shut up. Jin Lin didn't even bother looking at him. His gaze shifted to the doorway on the right side of the hall. A young man was leaning against the doorframe, 22 years old, wearing a white shore, with a 3-foot-long sword strapped across his back. Jin Fang, the #1 genius of this generation in the Jin family, possessor of an S-rank ability, Gengjin Sword Chi, mid-tier 3. Father, regarding Jin Kai's matter, the military's explanation is very logical, but the focus shouldn't be on the cause of death. The focus should be on the one who survived. Zhang Chen was in the F-rank dacoit team. By all rights, he should have been the first one to die. Yet the result is that every combat member in that wave was. Think about it. This is truly interesting. Jin Yanglin slowly sat back down in his chair. Looking past the shattered table, he looked at his eldest son. What do you mean? Next Wednesday is the inter-school tournament. Jin Feng gently tapped his scabbard. By then, all the students with awakened abilities in Zhangzhou will gather in that little pond. And if Jane Chan signs up, then it's the perfect chance for me to use the arena within the rules to ask him a few questions on behalf of my little brother. Jin Fang let out a faint chuckle. Ask what? Once he's in the ring, I only need one move to send him packing. There won't even be time for an interrogation. Then one move it is. Jin Lin's tone had regained its composure. But you must get that coin back. Begin Yinding, standing right next to them, suddenly stiffened. Jin Ji Anlin shot him a glance. Second uncle, do you really think the shady tricks you and Jin Kai pulled behind my back completely escaped my notice? Jin Yu Anning's back was already drenched in sweat. You wanted to swallow it all? I'll consider this matter closed. Jin Jianlin picked up the notice from under the desk. The issue with the coin will be handled by Jian Feng. Do it fair and square. Reign in your shadow unit for me. Zhen Yending stayed dead silent, not daring to breathe the word. Jin Feng slowly secured his sword back at his waist, stepped out of the hall and walked down the court door. As he stepped onto the stone stairs, the night wind from the valley swept in. Billowing his white robes, he stopped in his tracks, looking down at his sword. A weakling with an F rank ability going berserk in a crisis. That excuse might fool ordinary people, but staying completely lucid after going berserk, handling a military interrogation, cooperating with their tests, and recounting the whole event flawlessly, that kind of mental clarity doesn't sound like losing control at all. Sounds more like putting on an act. He drew his sword 3 inches, then sheathed it again. The cold clash of metal echoed far into the night wind. See you at the tournament. His voice was even colder than the wind. The next night I returned to wreaths at the gate and rumors about me. Hey, did you hear? Jian Chen defeated a tier 3 mutated beast during the exam. You're kidding, has just a useless F-rank watertight defeat my villain. But he actually survived. Out of 4 B-rank fighters, 3 died. Yay. At a low-rank scrub like him. Is still walking around perfectly fine. Talk about dumb luck. Walking across the sports field, I listened in along the way. The system panel kept ticking up numbers for me. Every person spreading the rumor contributed shock points, ranging from 1 to 3 points each. I couldn't care less. I entered the administration building, went up to the 3rd floor, and pushed open the door to the academic affairs office. A meeting was going on in silence. Behind the large desk, all the way in the back, sat the principal of Jiangzhou First High School, Wang Yuwang. I took 2 steps forward and slammed the registration form in my hand, onto the nearest desk with a loud smack. Principal, this is my registration form for the university tournament. Please stamp it. Wang Yuwang stood up. He strode over, picked up the form and scanned it from top to bottom. F-rank, water type, decoy class. He dropped the form back onto the desk, deliberately letting it hang right over the trash can. Zhang Chen, do you know what this tournament means to the school? An F rank from the decoy class like he wants to sign up. Losing would be a total humiliation. And if you get hurt, it's even more of a hassle. Who's going to pay your medical bills? Its logic sounded reasonable enough, but I wasn't in the mood to listen. Waiting for him to finish, I reached into the inner pocket of my uniform, pulled out the card Lang Cheng Shui had given me, the gold-plated 8-pointed star emblem, and gleamed brightly. A pass and personal recommendation letter from Major Lang Cheng Shui. With this, I can bypass the school's selection rounds and enter as an independent candidate. Whether you stamp it or not doesn't actually affect my registration, but processing it through the school saves a little face for First High School. Wang Yuguang reached out and took the card. The S-rank woman. Personally writing a recommendation letter for a nobody student, no matter how you looked at it. The power backing this was something he absolutely could not afford to offend, so he made a decision in true Wang Yuguang fashion. He handed the card back to me, picked up the registration form, rummaged through his drawer and pulled out his stamp. Thump. He stamped it right onto the form. Handed here. I'll submitted for you. A perfectly measured smile bloomed on Wang Yuguang's face. Wish you the best of luck. Talk about a quick change of face. I put the card away, gave a slight nod, said thank you principal, and turned to leave. The door slammed shut behind me. Walking down the hallway, the system text kept popping up. Emotion detected Wang Yiguang's humiliating concession shock points 45. Emotion detected mixed emotions from the 6 people present in the office. Total shock points 83. Current shock point balance 10,128. As I stepped out of the administration building, I activated at a distance of 12 meters. Target, Jin Fiang. S. Rank ability. Emotional state calm probing. At the bottom of the steps stood a young man in a white shirt, with a sword strapped to his waist. Our eyes briefly met. Jin Feng's gaze shifted from my face down to the registration receipt in my hand and lingered. Then he looked back up and spoke. Zheng Chen, don't get eliminated too early in the turn of. With that, he walked away, taking long strides. I watched his retreating back. The system panel remains silent. Jin Feng's emotion just now is merely calm probing. No contempt, no anger. He didn't contribute a single point. The truly strong never let the sight of an ant cause any emotional ripples. Only when they make a move do they notice there's something under their boot. Blocking their way, I folded the receipt and shoved it into my pocket. I wanted to make this guy feel something, and it had to be a massive emotional swing. 11 p.m. at the Jiangzhou waste treatment plant. I condensed a stream of water into a makeshift key. What I was looking for didn't need to be anything fancy. It didn't even need to be a weapon. The system's sublimation of all things featured stated clearly. Purify the essence of any item. The output quality depends on the points invested and the base potential of the object. Deep in the corner of the scrap metal section, hand brushed against a cold iron rod about 1.6 meters long, 3 centimeters in diameter. I yanked it out. The entire rod was rusted and heavy. One end had a spiral thread, while the other had a flat piece of steel welded to it, looking like a shovel. It was a sewer snake. I lifted it to test the weight, around 6.4 kilograms. The center of gravity was shifted back by 3 inches. I swung it a few times. The grip didn't feel bad at all. I hoisted the sewer snake onto my shoulder and kept wandering. Digging through the electronic waste section, I pulled out an alloy disc, the size of a flatbread, running over to the construction debris area. I picked up a black stone the size of a fist. I lined up the 3 items in a row on the ground. I squatted down. If you want to consume shock points to sublimate this item, discarded metal sewer snake, base potential rating, low. This meant that for the same point investment, the maximum output power would be extremely low, but I didn't need a top-tier artifact anyway. What I needed right now was a weapon registered at C rank that an awakened could use, without raising any suspicion. Standing out too much invites trouble. Something moderate like this was safe to invest in. Consume 2,000 points. The number on the system panel dropped from 14,210, 12,210. The transformation began at both ends of the snake. The rust didn't flake off. Instead, it seeped from the outer layer deep into the core. This, if absorbed and broken down by some unknown power, the dents and bumps on the surface of the pipe were gradually smoothed out. The color shifted from rusty red to a cold dark cyan. 3 seconds later, it was done. On the ground lay a dark cyan metal pole, 1.6 meters long, with a smooth matte finish. The shovel head welded to the other end had now morphed into a trident structure. Trident sublimation complete. Item name, Ocean Tide Trident. Quality crude sea. Materials, abyssal diamond. 9% purity traits. Water type compatibility. 2. Hardness exceeds weapons of the same rank by 200%. Ordinary B-rank weapons cannot scratch it. A C-rank weapon, with the defensive hardness of a B-rank or higher. This meant that when facing B-rank or even a rank competitor in the tournament, if the opponents struck my weapon, they'd find they couldn't cut through it. It was reasonable and wouldn't draw too much attention. A perfect hidden trump card. I picked up the Ocean Tide Trident and gave it a couple of swings. The air tore apart, carrying a low resonant hum. It sounded like a stream of water being sliced in half. System, in here. Open the list of sublimitable skills. The system panel immediately displayed a list. 1. F-rank water splash sublimation cost 500 points. C. The leader's wrath water jet cutter SS rank subskill. Sublimation cost 10,000 points. 4. C. The leader's wrath sailor's signal SS rank subskill. Sublimation cost 6,000 points. The sublimation cost for SSS rank subskills was several times more expensive than for items. Right now, I only had 12,210 points to use. Just enough to sublimate one core skill, Water Jet Cutter. This was the skill I had currently mastered, and it was also my strongest. Single target attack. That demonic ape was turned to dust precisely because of this move. Sublimate water jet cutter consume 8,000 point. This time the transformation wasn't external but deep within my body. An incredibly intense sensation of awakening surged through me. My energy pathways were being reconfigured. The process lasted about 7 seconds, then everything returned to silence. Sublimation complete. Skill name Kerr. Rank SSS sublimated. The limit of water jets increased from 10,000 to 50,000. Maximum pressure increased from 4,200 atmospheres to 12,000 atmospheres. New trait returning to the nest. After slicing through the target, the water jets will not dissipate, but will automatically retract around the user, forming a comprehensive offensive and defensive shield. Energy efficiency improved. For the same output, energy consumption is reduced by 40%. This meant that my body, which could originally only last 2 minutes going all out, could now sustain it for 3 minutes and 20 seconds. This new returning to the nest trait meant that every time I launched an attack, another layer of shielding would wrap around me. The more I fought, the thicker my defense would get. I planted the ocean tide trident on the ground, leaned against the metal rack, and looked down at my palm. A balance of 4,210 points wasn't much at all. Gotta spend it wise. Next Wednesday the tournament begins. Wednesday, Zhangzhou Arena. I entered through the competitive. On the card Ling Cheng Shui gave me to get inside. As I passed through security, card reader beeped. The registration staff member standing nearby, because second look at me, Zheng Chen, registered ability, F rank recommendation letter, the very card I had just scanned. User, Ling Cheng Shui. Staff member tapped a few times into the internal search system. Information that popped up on the screen made his expression freeze for a beat. Please go in. I walked into the competitor waiting area, room C17. I pulled the ocean tide trident out of the canvas bag on my back and propped it up in the corner. Dark science shaft of the trident looked very unassuming under the light. Current shock point balance, 4,580 points. Over the past 5 days it had gone up by more than 300 points. The ripple effect was still spreading, but the growth rate was slowing down. I needed a new hit. The opening ceremony started at 1:00 p.m. As I stepped out of the tunnel, the giant screen was cycling through the competitor's information when, for a noticeable beat, competitor note 121, Zhang Chen from Jiangzhou First High School, registered ability rank F, ability name, Water Splat. Out of the 28,000 people in the arena, at least 25,000 saw that rank in the West General seating area. A bold guy with a booming voice shot up from his seat and yelled F rank. That ranked heirs to step into the arena. Who spoiled brat is this? His words acted like a spark, and the surrounding crowd instantly erupted in an uproar. Is there some mistake? Doesn't an F rank just spit water? Rigged. It's definitely rigged. The system panel in my line of sight, it started ticking up like crazy. Numbers kept popping up. Shock points 3, and just over 10 seconds, more than 20 notifications flashed. Even though each addition was tiny, the sheer volume was massive. I kept my head down and walked into the line of competitors, taking my spot. Corners of my mouth didn't twitch, but the balance number in the bottom right corner of the system panel jumped from. In just 1 minute, the opening ceremony ended and the draw began on the giant screen. The competitor's ID number started rolling. Match 37, competitor note 121. John Chen, Water Splash, F rank versus competitor, no B078, Shi T Sean, Iron Wall Enhancement, B rank. The arena's reaction immediately split into 2 camps. Isn't this just handing out free points? You call this a random draw? An F rank against a B rank. Did you guys do this on purpose? In the VIP area, Jin Feng looked at the matchup on the screen, tapping his finger twice on his scabbard. She teased Shen. He spoke to the manager beside him. The manager nodded. Those guys from the sports academy are hot-headed. They usually don't hold back when they strike. Which match am I in? Match 51, sir. Your opponent is a C rank from Junshin Library. Whatever. His gaze left the screen and looked toward the line of competitors, resting on the figure, wearing the gray-blue uniform. If Shi Tishan wins, I'll face him in the. The manager opened the bracket map. Group 37 and Group 51 will clash in round 2. Jin Feng gave a simple "Emmy." He didn't say what if she teased on loose. is, because just like almost everyone else present, he didn't even entertain that hypothese, and F rank against a B rank. There is no what if. The qualifiers proceeded group by group. I was in group 37 with 36 matches ahead of me. It would probably be about 2.5 hours. I found a chair in the competitive rest area, sat down and laid the ocean tide trident across my lap. Closing my eyes to rest, waves of cheering from outside drifted in. Over 2 hours later, competitors of Group 37, please enter the arena. When I carried the ocean tide trident into the ring, Shitishin was already warming up on the opposite side. Both of his arms had entered the activated state of Iron Wall Enhanced. The surface of his skin gleamed with an ash-gray metallic sheen. The size difference was terrifying. He was 1.92 meters tall and weighed 110 kilograms. It was 1.75 meters tall, weighed 65 kilograms, and wore a gray. Holding a trident, I was half a head shorter than my opponent. Finish him in 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Someone in the stands was screaming at the top of their lungs. The referee panel read the rules as a formality. Shitishin smashed his fist together, the clash of his iron arms letting out a dull thud. Little bro, your name's Zheng Chen, right? I am a straight shooter, so it'll give it to you straight. Once we're in the ring, I don't hold back, but it'll control my strength. At worst, it'll just damage your muscles and bones. 2 months of recovery and you'll be fine. Don't be scared, brother Shi. This muscle and bone damage you're talking about, is it yours or mine? Shitishan's expression froze for a split second. Then he burst out laughing. You've got guts. You're the first F rank to ever talk tough to me. Alright, if you can take one punch from me later, I Shitishan will treat you to a meal. I nodded. Remember that? I have a big appetite. Right before the head referee stepped back, I spoke up. My voice wasn't loud. Noise in the arena instantly dropped by half. My registered rank is F, and my ability is Water Splash. That information isn't wrong, but during a real combat situation a month ago, my ability mutated. The military has already updated my file. It's just that the school's information hasn't been updated yet. I pointed the tip of the ocean tide trident downward, planting it straight into the arena floor. The actual current rank is C. Ability name Water Manipulation. The entire arena fell silent. It took a second, and then the stands exploded. From F rank jumping straight to C rank, a mutated ability can skip ranks that crazily. You've gotta be kidding me. There's never been a precedent for this in academia. Still, C rank Water Manipulation. If it's true, it's at the abyss of a lot stronger than F rank. Compared to Shitin's B rank Iron Wall, it's still a tier low. It won't change the outcome anyway. Jin Feng said nothing. What he was analyzing wasn't those rank numbers at all. He was analyzing why I chose. Someone was truly only at C rank when facing a B rank like Shitishan. The smartest tactic would be to stay quiet and fight. Exposing your trump card before the match is pointless. Unless what he revealed wasn't his trump card, but just another layer of disguise. Group 37's match begins. Moment Shitishin took his first step, the arena trembled violently. His 110 kg body, enveloped in the gray light of his iron wall enhancement, charged forward with the pressure of a small truck slamming right into your face. He crossed the 12-meter distance in just 0.8 seconds. His right fist began to gather power when he was only 2 meters away from my chest. Metallic sheen on his skin shifted from dull gray to a blinding silver. 2 meters, 1.5 meters, 1 meter. I slightly raised my right index finger. The moisture in the air was instantly drained, condensing into the shape of a water whip as thick as a thumb and about 4 meters long. Process from condensation to formation took only 0.3 seconds. The water whip lashed out without a single swish. The sound of tearing air arrived 0.1 seconds after the strike. Because the speed of the water whip had broken the sound barrier, the point of impact was dead center on CT Shan's chest. It wasn't an area of effect attack, but a direct strike right to the chest. CT Shan's immense forward momentum was completely reversed. The moment of impact, his 110 kilogram body suddenly folded in half and was sent flying backwards. At a terrifying speed, even faster than when he had charged at me. Protective barrier at the edge of the ring flashed. It acted like a giant elastic net, catching him completely. Shitishan's back slid down the barrier before he collapsed to the floor. He dropped to his knees, hands planted firmly on the arena floor. He gasped for air, mouth wide open. looking exactly like a beached fish, yanked out of the water. Shitishin gritted his teeth, struggling to lift his right knee off the ground. Ye wanted to stand up, but right before his knee could fully straight, a tiny object suddenly appeared right in front of his eyes, exactly 3 centimeters from his forehead. Every movement Shitishin made froze. He stared intently at that drop of water, then he heard me speak. Brother Shi, about that meal you promised, let me pick the place. Shitishin stared at the water drop for a second, then just fell flat on his back. The back of his head slammed against the floor with a dull thud. He hadn't passed out. He just gave up and lay there. Competitor down for more than 5 seconds. 1-2. Competitor no. 1-2-1. Ji Young Chen wins. Head referee raised the flag. The entire arena was dead silent. In a stadium holding up to 28,000 people. 8. That very moment. It was so quiet you could hear the wind blowing through the gaps in the domed roof. From the moment Shitishin charged to the moment he was sent flying backward, the total time was a mere 1.8 seconds. That eerie silence lasted for 3 whole seconds. Then the noise hit. It wasn't cheering, but the chaotic, deafening roar, like a tape that had been paused. And suddenly, he said he was C rank, AC rank, whipping a B rank away with a single strike. The speed of that water whip was absurd. It broke the sound barrier, didn't it? The stat panel in my vision started jumping like crazy. The screen was spammed with a barrage of numbers. In just 3 short seconds, it skyrocketed from 4,917. Total shock points, 7,841. At the increase of nearly 3,000 points, the momentum of that strike still lingered. I retracted my index finger, bent down and picked up the Ocean Tide Trident. And as I stepped down from the ring, I walked past Shitishin. He was still sprawled out on the ground. Brother Shitishin rolled his eyes to look at me. You went down on purpose, didn't you? You could Vive actually stood back up. Shitishin stayed silent for 2 seconds. No, his voice was still as booming as ever. That drop of water was hovering right in front of my forehead. I'm not stupid enough to stand up and take another hit. Might as well just lie here and rest. He grinned, baring his teeth. But you still owe me. Shouldered the Ocean Tide Trident and headed back to the competitor area. As I passed through the corridor beneath the VIP section, I didn't look up. Target Jin Fang emotional fluctuation triggered. Points 3. From 0 to 3, Jin Fang finally had a little ripple in his heart. Even if it was just at the level of finding the interesting, this ant had finally caught his eye. The very night of the match. In the top 10 trending searches on the Zhengzhou, internet news related to the tournament took up 6 spots. News related to me took up 3 of them. F rank competitor takes down B rank in 1 move. What level is the water splash team? Zhang Chen really at the post with the highest view count came from the Zhengzhou Awakened forum, posted by an account named Abyssal Bystander. The title was Objective Analysis, the True Limits of Zhang Chen's C-rank water manipulation. In his first match, the core argument was that the strength Zhang Chen displayed be entirely explained E as being somewhere between C and B rank, but rather that Shitishin's defense had glaring loophole. Pretty professional analysis. I sat on my dorm bed glued to my phone. Tone in the comments section of the post started to shift. A flood of comments with incredibly similar structures and phrasing poured in over a short period. It's just C-rank water manipulation. This sentence appeared 17 times. If he meets a real A-rank genius, this sky will definitely be exposed 13 times. Don't forget Hayes from the decoy class. If it was a fair fight, how could he win? Shitishin went easy on him 9 times. Are they pumping and bought armies on an industrial scale? I put my phone down and chuckled. The Jin family's tactics weren't exactly grand, but their timing was impeccable. Right when the hype from the first match was at its peak, they concentrated on releasing negative public opinion. The goal was to steer the narrative, dragging that overly explosive F-rank one-shots B-rank headline back to the safe zone of C-rank, barely beats careless B-rank. Why would they do that? To lower the public's expectations of me. The lower the expectations, the smaller gap means the points generated will also take a hit. Current total balance, 16,440 points. It had nearly quadrupled in just 1 day. If I didn't do something, I'd be doing a disservice to the Jin family's investment. I picked up my phone again and opened to personal account. I had registered over half a year ago. but had never posted anything on. A completely clean account with 0 followers. Display ID was Elders of John Dong. I posted a short 30-second video. The content was incredibly simple. The front camera of the phone pointed straight at my face. A B of me was the incandescent light of the dorm, casting a pale white glove. I looked straight into the lens instead of few words. Hi everyone, I'm Jinyang Chen. In today's opening match of the tournament, I beat Senior Shi Tishan. The internet says I only have a C rank ability, and that Senior Shi lost because he underestimated me. That makes sense. I nodded. Senior Shi really did just charge straight at me. Those analysis posts, but I want to respond. If I run into an A rank or S rank competitor, what will I do? I looked down at my right hand, then held my index finger up to the lens. I don't know either. Just a month ago, I was still just an F rank water splash. How it's mutated into C rank water manipulation. How far can this ability actually go? Even I have no idea. Saying that, I tilted my head slightly. Very slight angle, but hey my round 2 opponent, if you're watching this video, yeah, I'm talking to you. You better be careful next match. The video ended. I posted it. 3 hours later, views hit 1,420,000. Algorithms can't understand human emotions, but they do understand data, the atmosphere and the comment section was the complete opposite of the forum. The top comments were all like, I don't know why, but when this guy says I don't know, I get the feeling. He actually knows everything. Did anyone notice his eyes at the end? I watched it 3 times. I can't describe the feeling. It just seems so incredibly calm, unnaturally calm. Can those bot accounts saying has only C rank change their script? I just scrolled a bit and already saw it doesn't identical comment. So embarrassing. The bot posts were completely drowned out. I lay sprawled on my dorm bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. My phone was tossed aside. System panel was displayed in the top right corner of my vision. Total balance, 19,870 point. This number had increased by over 3,400 points in just 3 hours out of 1,400,000 views. Even if only a tenth of the viewers generated valid emotion, the numbers would still keep dancing. The matchup bracket for round 2 wouldn't be announced until tomorrow. If I win 2 matches in a row, I'll clash with Jin Feng in round 3. The gap between the 2 matches is 3 days. What could I accomplish in 3 days? First, I need to push the Ocean Tide Trident from C up another T. Second, I closed my eyes tightly. The awakened power inside my body was still silently circulated, just relying on one move to conquer everything. Nah, that's not enough. I need a second trump card. That skill sublimation list. On the system panel was sublimating the skill would cost 6,000 points. Those 12 ironclad rhinos were still waiting in the military zone. The way the rules for the semi-finals were announced was highly dramatic. Right on the morning of the second day, immediately after all the qualifiers ended, head referee personally stepped up to the podium to read the rules. Wax seal on the envelope. A detail caught my eye. The lines on the wax weren't seamless. It looked as if after being sealed it had been peeled open and then resealed. By decision of the organizing committee, the semi-finals will adopt a 100-person survival format. The 64 competitors who pass the qualifiers will be divided into 2 blocks. Block A with 32 people and Block B with 32 people. Each block will be dropped into a simulated ecological environment. The time limit is 2 hours. At the start of the match, each competitor will hold 3 survival badges. If defeated or if they voluntarily surrender, the competitor must hand over 1 badge to block will advance. The rules themselves weren't the issue. The problem lay in how the blocks were divided. The list on the screen started rolling. Names of the block competitors appeared one by one. Out of a block of 32 people, 31 were affiliated with the Jim family. The only one left out was me. The competitor area started buzzing with chatter. What kind of grouping is this? It's all Jin family people? Wait, look at the 7th guy. Shug Zixin. Isn't that chief referee Zhou's grandson? In the VIP area, Jin Fang seems satisfied with this grouping result, but that satisfaction was far too calm. So calm that it didn't contribute a single shock point to me because he had already anticipated this outcome. Current shock point balance 2250 point. I looked down at the sharp tip of the Ocean Tide Trident and smiled faintly, simply because I found something truly ridiculous. 31 guys ganging up on one person. Yet the Jin family thought too few people would make it boring to watch, so they proactive was a metal tunnel, 3 meters in diameter, its ends split into 32 independent teleportation belts. Theory: this was completely random. However, I noticed that the frequency of the energy pathway inside my tunnel had been manually tampered with. This meant that the drop coordinates weren't random at all. The organizers had already pre-arranged my landing spot, most likely right in the middle of the map, making it easy for them to gang up on me. I strode into the tunnel, teleportation process activated. The light suddenly changed. I was standing in the middle of a clearing in a forest. The clearing was about 30 meters in diameter, surrounded by the shadows of tall, broad-leaved trees. A virtual reality projection flashed. Sure enough, my position was right in the center of the competition area. The survival battle for block a countdown 321 began. Then I did something that completely went against every conventional tact. I slammed the sea-calming trident into the ground right in the middle of the clear, then casually took off my uniform jacket. I pulled a Ziploc bag out of my pocket. Inside were 3 pieces of perfectly marinated beef jerky. I wrapped them tightly in aluminum foil, then started gathering dry branches around. To start a fire, I used water. More accurately, I manipulated the water molecules in the air, making them collide at high speed to generate friction heat, focusing it all into a single point. 30 seconds later, thick smoke billowed from the clearing. In the sky above the 20,000 square meter ecological zone, a straight column of grayish-white smoke rose up, clearly visible from the entire arena. The stands below instantly erupted. The crowd was in an uproar. What the abyss is that kid doing? He's starting a fire. Look, he's actually starting a fire. Match just started, and 31 people are targeting him, yet has just taken his sweet time building a campfire in the middle of nowhere. Wait, is he grilling meat? The panoramic screen instantly switched to a close-up shot of me. In the frame, I was squatting by the fire, placing the foil-wrapped beef over the flame with meticulous precision. The flickering firelight the commentator's desk practically exploded. Ladies and gentlemen, am I seeing this right? Contestant number 110 Yuan Zhang Chen, in the very first minute of the survival battle, has chosen to start a campfire right in the middle of the arena. Old Zon, can you analyze this for us? Is using some kind of high-level tactic that I'm just not grasping. I give up. I can't analyze this. I've been in this business for 12 years, and this is the very first time I've seen someone grill meat during the survival round of the tournament. The stat panel in my vision started ticking up, jumping continuously, but I didn't have time to look. I was listening to the sound. Noise is in the forest. We're coming from 4 directions, slowly closing in. The closest group was to the northeast, 1,220 meters away. 3 people to the southwest. 5 people moving very fast, seems like they're eager to claim the first blood. To the north, 7 people moving the most cautiously, probably the main assault team. Besides them, 26 people were converging on this spot. I flipped the foil packets. Beef jerky wasn't cooked yet. I looked up and called out toward the bushes surrounding the clear. Alright, stop hiding. The footsteps in the forest suddenly stop. While you're coming over, grab some dry firewood, will you? Man, it's too damp here. The fire is super weak. Area fell dead silent for about 3 seconds. Then from the bushes to the southwest, Ian's irritated voice rang out. What the abyss is this? 5 people charged out from that direction. Leading them was a D-ranked fire awakened. Both his hands were already blazing with flames. Zhang Chen, stop playing games. The fire awakened's voice was even hotter than his flames. Didn't finish his sentence because he caught a whiff of the beef jerky that the wind conveniently blew over from my side. Soy sauce, black pepper, and a hint of garlic aroma. The flames on the fire awakened's hands suddenly dimmed a bit. He didn't do it on purpose. He was just distracted. I squatted by the fire, used a branch to poke a piece of cooked beef out of the foil, blew on it, and it took the other 2 packets out of the fire. Want some? The 5 of them exchanged glances. Is he inviting us to eat meat? Don't fall for it. It's a psychological trick, but it smells so good. In the VIP room, the glass of red wine and Jin Janfeng's hand was completely still. The first time he stared intently, his eyes locked onto the figure squatting and chewing beef jerky by the fire on the screen. The strategist standing next to him whispered, "Young master, should we notify them to attack immediately?" Jinfeng didn't answer. He was deep in thought about one question. What the abyss is this guy doing? Someone about to be besieged by over 30 people chooses to actively expose his position and drawing all his enemies together. There are only two explanations for this action. Either has incredibly stupid or has absolutely certain EV. When facing over 30 people at once, G.N. Fang's right finger paused on his sword hilt for a second. Or maybe he wants to gather them all in one play and wipe them out in one fell swoop. The first wave of attack. The 5 people from the southwest made the first move. A fireball the size of a wash basin flew straight at me from 30 meters away. At the same time, the group of 3 from the northeast arrived. A row of knee-high earth spikes pierced up from the ground, rushing rapidly toward the center of the clearing. Vines from the group of 7 to the north also reached out from the canopy above. Fireballs, earth spikes, vines, and even 2 metal blades whistling through the air. 3 waves of attacks. I spring up incredibly fast, but I didn't dodge. With a half-eaten piece of beef jerky in my mouth, I grabbed the uniform jacket spread on the ground with both hands, wrapped the remaining 2 foil packets of jerky inside it, and casually tossed it behind a rotting tree stump 5 meters away. Then I pulled out the sea-calming trident. The fireball was less than 2 meters away. I raised my right hand, not just an index finger but my whole hand. I didn't condense it into a water whip. Within a 30-meter altitude over the clear all water molecules were mobilized simultaneously, and just a mere 0.3 millimeter thick. The fireball hit the water membrane and didn't explode at all. The water membrane instantly evaporated at the point of contact. The high temperature and expansion force generated altered the fireball's trajectory, grazed past my left shoulder and slammed straight into the tree behind me. The earth spikes reached my feet. I took a step to the left, dodging the first row of spikes. I lowered my body by 30 centimeters and the second row of spikes grazed right over my head. My right foot stepped back half a pace. The third row of spikes tore through the ground, emerging exactly 2 centimeters from the tip of my front toe. True precision doesn't rely on the eyes, but on the soles of the feet. Water-type abilities have an application that the vast majority of people ignore. Can construct a real-time heat map recording the movement of every object beneath the ground. My footsteps didn't hesitate at all. Every step landed perfectly in the safe gaps. Between the earth spikes, plant vines whipped down from above. The sea-calming trident swung up in an arc. The sharp tips didn't slice through the vine, yanked them outward at a right angle to their growth direction and applied more force, twisting them exactly like wringing out a towel. The fiber structure was completely destroyed. The vine snapped instantly on the spot. From the moment the first fireball struck to when the vine snapped, it took exactly 4 seconds. I was still standing in place. Total distance my feet moved hadn't exceeded 2 meters. The piece of beef jerky in my mouth hadn't even fallen. The entire stadium fell into dead silence. Commentator's voice rang out again. "This is too brutal. He hasn't even fought back yet." 3. Completely different countermeasure. Switches seamlessly in a mere 4 seconds. This is absolutely not the reaction speed of a C-ray. The notification panel started jumping crazily and my vision score 45 score 22. Massive gains started pouring in, but I didn't have the mind to look at the numbers, because the second wave was already here. The group of 7 from the north charged straight out. The vanguard consisted of 2 metal-type contests. Middle row had 3 long-range damage dealers. The back row had 2 supports. At the same time, the remaining 16 people swarmed out from other direction. 28 people surrounded me from all sides. 28 people opened fire at once. Fireballs, wind blades, earth spikes, flying daggers, metal, vines, and even ice stalactite. At least 7 different elemental abilities crashed straight into the center of the clearing. From a full 360-degree angle, the attack density was so thick that the data rendering system for the canopy projection overloaded for a split second. The commentator screamed until his voice went hoarse. 28 people firing a full coverage barrage. Zheng Chen is trapped. His next word caught in his throat, because I had already vanished. 28 attacks converged with a deafening crash in the middle of the clear. There was no shock-absorbing shield. The alloy floor was ripped apart, creating a crater 6 meters in diameter. Dust and smoke billowed everywhere. There is no one in the middle of the clearing, only a grayish-blue uniform. Exactly 1 second before they opened fire. A classic misdirection. In the stands that were ear-piercing screams, some mutter curses, while others laugh so hard they couldn't stand up. The numbers on the control panel started dancing. 8 speed I had never seen before. Score 88. Score 156. But I didn't have the time to care. My voice echoed down from mid-air. At a height of 78 meters, I was standing proudly on a reinforced concrete beam, right on the dome framework of the ecological simulation zone. The sea calming trident was resting casually across my shoulders. I looked down at the 28 dumbfounded guys in the crater. The firelight from below illuminated my face. I dropped a line with the exact tone of a teacher grading homework. Your teamwork is terrible. 28 people aiming at a single point, and 12 of your attacks completely missed. The fireball that was furthest off flew a whole 9 meters away. Let me see. Ah, a D-rank fire awakened. Go back and practice more. A stationary target at 30 meters. And you missed. Indescribable sound echoed throughout the stands, not quite left, and not quite screaming. It was as if someone had their head held down and was forced to watch some insane performance art. Before squeezing out this noise, hoarse roar, a mix of finding it hilarious and the boiling surge of adrenaline. Betting floor had crashed 30 seconds ago. The bookmaker system was throwing non-stop errors. In the VIP room, Jin Shanfeng's glass of red wine stopped in mid-air, right at his lips, the liquid sloshing slightly. For the first time, his strategist spoke up without waiting for an order. Young master, shut up. Jin Feng stared at the screen. His eyes locked onto the figure standing on the crossbeam. System detected emotional fluctuation from Jin. Jian Feng, emotion type, scrutiny and vigilance, medium-high level. It spiked from 3 to 18 in a flash. It felt like an ant that had just caught the eye of a wild tiger. My eyes swept over those 28 guys, then stopped on one person standing way in the back. It was a C-rank contestant. Hands in his pockets. He hadn't made a single move this whole time. He was looking back at me too, his expression strangely calm. We were separated by a vertical distance of about 7 or 8 meters. He looked straight into each other's eyes for about a second. I slowly lifted the sea-calming trident off my shoulder, pointed the tip straight down and slammed it into the metal surface of the cross. The first round of the survival battle came to a close. 28 guys firing together didn't land a single hit, and I hadn't even finished chewing my beef jerky. The match had only been going on for 4 minutes. I still had 2 whole packets of jerky left. Suddenly the loudspeakers blared, but it wasn't the voice of the head referee announcing the match results. Was an emergency broadcast cutting in. It was the deep, commanding voice of a middle-aged man. The sound carried an undeniable authority, blasting straight through the stadium's amplification system, echoing across the dome. Group 37's survival battle is immediately suspended. Contestant number 121 Zhang Chen, report to the central, and casually hoisted the sea-calming trident onto my shoulder. As I walked past the VIP area, I looked up for the first time, meeting the sharp, eagle-like gaze of Jin Zhenfeng. The wine glass in his hand had been crushed to piece. Some point the crimson liquid seeped through his fingers, dripping onto the floor. An absolute terror. It wasn't even anger. It was something on a higher level. It was the instinctive weariness of a beast having its territory invades. I smiled at him and said at a volume only the two of us could hear, looks like your sword won't get the chance to leave its sheath. As soon as I finished speaking, a new notification popped up on the system panel. Detected emotional fluctuation from Jin Jinfeng, extreme killing intent. Fear points 500. I didn't bother looking at him anymore, turning around and heading straight for the central control room. The killing intent from an S-rank genius was worth more than 10 of those small fries outside combined. Pushing open the heavy door of the control room, I originally thought I'd meet Yue Genshan or some high-ranking general, but there was only one person in the room. Someone wearing a faded, washed-out worker's uniform. An old man wiping the screens with a rat. The old man turned around. His appearance was completely unremarkable, but those eyes were as deep as if they held 10,000 years of ocean water. Young man that coined the coin your parents left you, could you let me take a look? My footsteps faltered for the first time. My heart rate remained steady at 62 beats per minute, but the ability within my body uncontrollably began to surge on its own. This was a reaction I hadn't even experienced when facing the demonic ape. Stared at the old man, stayed silent for a few seconds, then pulled the rust-covered coin out of my pocket, spinning it lightly on my fingertip. Beneath the layer of rust on the coin, that pale blue light that didn't belong to this world, under the old man's intense gaze actively flared up brilliantly for the first time, and after you looked, the old man smiled but didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward the closed door behind me, his gaze seemingly able to see through the entire world. After I look, we can have a chat about what exactly lies above the mythic realm